The Art Director's Debrief, Wuthering Heights Deconstructed, Anatomy of a Mind in Ruins. Hello, and welcome back to the Emotive archive. We left our characters at a devastating turning point. A fateful choice has been made. A soul has declared its own betrayal. And Heathcliff, the dark, vital half of Catherine's existence, has vanished into the stormy night. Today, in our analysis of chapters 12 and 13, we will witness the immediate, terrifying, and profound consequences of that single act. We will descend into the chaotic landscape of a mind at war with itself, a soul literally tearing itself apart. This is not just a story of a broken heart. It is a masterclass in psychological horror, a deep dive into the anatomy of madness, and a chilling exploration of what happens when a human being is forcibly severed from their own essential nature. The section begins with Catherine's immediate reaction to Heathcliff's departure, a self-imposed exile within her own room. She locks herself away for 3 days, refusing to eat. This is not the gentle pining of a romantic heroine. It is an act of violent, self-destructive protest. It is a hunger strike against her own decision. By choosing the civilized, comfortable world of Edgar Linton, she has sentenced her wild, authentic self to death, and her body immediately begins to follow suit. When she finally emerges, she is a changed being. The proud, vibrant young woman is gone, replaced by a creature of feverish, wild-eyed delirium. This is the beginning of her descent into what the characters call brain fever, but what we, as modern readers, can analyze as a profound psychological breakdown. Bronte masterfully uses a series of powerful Gothic symbols to illustrate the fracturing of Catherine's mind. The first is the pillow of feathers. In her delirium, Catherine begins to tear her pillow apart, obsessively identifying the different types of feathers within it. This is a moment of profound and heartbreaking symbolism. These are not just any birds, they are the wild birds of the moors, the birds of her childhood, the birds of her shared kingdom with Heathcliff. In her madness, she is desperately trying to reconnect with that lost, natural world. She tells Nellie, "That's a turkey's, and this is a wild duck's, and this is a pigeon's, and here is a moorcock's, and this, I should know it, it's a lapwing's." Each feather is a tangible piece of her lost identity, a relic from the paradise she has willingly abandoned. She is a prisoner in the opulent, stuffy room of Thrushcross Grange, and her mind is desperately trying to fly back to the freedom of the moors. This leads to the section's most terrifying and iconic scene, the confrontation with the mirror. As Nellie tries to make her look at her own reflection, Catherine recoils in absolute horror. She does not recognize the pale, wild-eyed woman staring back at her. "Don't you see that face?" she shrieks, convinced there is another ghostly presence in the room. This is more than just a moment of confusion. It is a moment of profound psychological dissociation. The reflection she sees, the face of Mrs. Linton, has become a stranger to her. Her true self, the wild Catherine Earnshaw, is looking at this new, civilized persona with terror and revulsion. The mirror, usually a tool for confirming identity, has become a portal to a horrifying doppelganger. It is a visual representation of her soul having been split into two. She is no longer one person, but two warring entities trapped in a single body. Her madness culminates in the act of throwing open the window, letting the cold night air rush in. She calls out into the darkness, believing she is back in her old oak-paneled bed at Wuthering Heights, looking out onto the moors. "I'm burning," she cries, a statement of her fever, but also of her spiritual torment. She longs for the wind from the north, the wild, cleansing force of nature, to cool the fever of her civilized life. She speaks of Heathcliff, not as a lover she misses, but as an integral part of herself that has been amputated. She declares that in her final moments she will not be buried in the Linton tomb, a symbol of civilized religion and social status, but out on the moors with the wind and the heather. This is a powerful declaration of her true allegiance. Even in her madness, her soul knows where it belongs. Throughout this harrowing ordeal, the other characters serve as foils that highlight the depth of her tragedy. Edgar Linton, her new husband, is a portrait of helpless, conventional love. He is kind, he is devoted, but he is utterly unequipped to understand the savage, elemental nature of his suffering. He tries to soothe her with logic and comfort, but these are the tools of his civilized world, and they are useless against the storm raging within her. He can tend to her body, but he cannot reach her soul. He is a good man, but he is the wrong man, and his gentle love is a cage, not a cure. Nellie Dean, our narrator, is a more complex figure. She is the pragmatic, sensible observer trying to manage a situation that is beyond her control. She shows a mixture of pity, frustration, and a deep, almost fearful, understanding of the powerful bond between Catherine and Heathcliff. She is our guide through this psychological landscape, but even she can only stand and watch as Catherine's mind consumes itself. Chapter 13 marks a fragile, temporary truce in this internal war. Catherine emerges from her fever, physically weakened but lucid. The doctor's prognosis is grim. Her constitution is shattered, and any future shock could be fatal. We learn that she is pregnant, a detail that brings a flicker of hope to Edgar, a hope for a new heir and a continuation of the civilized line. For a brief period, a calm settles over the Grange. But it is not a true peace. It is the quiet eye of a hurricane. The forces that nearly destroyed Catherine have not been vanquished. They have merely retreated, waiting for the next trigger. And that trigger, as we know, is about to return. The wild heart of the moors, Heathcliff, has been absent for 3 years, but his presence is still the dominant force in Catherine's life. His return will be the final, fatal shock that her fragile system cannot withstand. The descent into madness we have just witnessed is not the end of the story. It is merely a dress rehearsal for the final, tragic performance to come.
Now that we have anatomized the harrowing events of Catherine's breakdown, let us elevate our analysis and propose a more radical artistic thesis. The traditional psychological reading sees Catherine's brain fever as a simple descent into madness, a mind breaking under the strain of grief and a bad decision. But what if we were to view it through a different lens? I will now argue that Catherine's madness is not a passive breakdown, but an active, violent, and ultimately artistic act of spiritual exorcism. She is not simply going mad, she is engaged in a desperate, subconscious ritual to purge the civilized Linton persona that has been imposed upon her, in a terrifying attempt to return to her true, authentic, feral self, the self that is Heathcliff. Let us deconstruct the scene as a piece of performance art, a ritual with distinct symbolic stages. The first stage is purification through starvation. Catherine locks herself away and refuses food. In many ancient spiritual traditions, fasting is a method of purifying the body and detaching the soul from its worldly needs to achieve a higher state of consciousness. Catherine's self-starvation is a brutal, instinctive version of this. She is attempting to starve the Mrs. Linton part of herself, to weaken the physical body that is tied to this new false identity. It is an act of violent rejection against the comfort and domesticity that Thrushcross Grange represents. She is refusing to be nourished by a world she despises. The second stage of the ritual is reconnection with the totemic past, symbolized by the feathers. Her obsessive caring of the pillow is not a random act of a fevered mind. It is a shamanic act. She is deconstructing an artifact of civilization, a pillow, to find the elements of nature hidden within. Each feather she identifies, the lapwing, the moorcock, is a totem, a direct physical link to her caste, to her kingdom on the moors, to her life with Heathcliff. She is surrounding herself with these sacred objects, trying to rebuild her lost world from its fragments. She is a high priestess performing a ritual of memory, a desperate attempt to summon the spirits of her authentic self. The third and most terrifying stage is the confrontation with the false self, symbolized by the mirror. The mirror in Gothic literature is rarely a neutral object. It is a portal, a revealer of hidden truths. When Catherine looks in the mirror and sees a stranger, she is not just delusional. Her soul is literally rejecting the physical image of Catherine Linton. The face in the mirror, pale, refined, the face of Edgar's wife, has become her doppelganger, her ghost, the ghost of the civilized woman who has possessed her body. Her terror is the terror of a soul seeing its own demonic imposter. This is the moment of exorcism where she tries to separate her true wild essence from this false alien persona. The final stage of the ritual is the invocation, the summoning of the true natural forces. By throwing open the window, she is not just seeking fresh air, she is performing a sacred act. She is breaking the seal of the civilized enclosed space and inviting the wild, chaotic, and purifying power of the moors back into her life. The cold wind she craves is the breath of her true God, the spirit of Wuthering Heights. Her desperate cries for Heathcliff are not just for a lost lover. They are an invocation to her other half, the male principle of her own wild soul. She is a priestess calling upon her dark god to come and save her from the false heaven in which she is imprisoned. Viewed through this lens, Catherine's madness is not a weakness, but a terrible and tragic form of strength. It is an act of profound, if self-destructive, integrity. Her soul refuses to live a lie. It would rather shatter its physical vessel than submit to a civilized identity that is false. She is not a passive victim of madness. She is an active, albeit subconscious agent in a violent spiritual war. Her tragedy is that she cannot win. She cannot successfully purge the Linton self without destroying her physical body. And she cannot survive as Mrs. Linton without killing her own soul. She is trapped in an impossible paradox, a state of being that is a living death. This interpretation also reframes Edgar's role. He is not just a kind, helpless husband. He is the unwitting jailer, the representative of the civilizing force that is destroying her. His love, his comfort, his beautiful home, these are the bars of his cage. He is trying to save the life of the woman he loves, but he is fundamentally incapable of understanding that the very life he offers is the source of her spiritual death. The ultimate tragedy of Wuthering Heights is not just that a great love was lost, but that a powerful, unique, and magnificent soul was destroyed by the well-intentioned but ultimately fatal forces of social conformity. Catherine's madness is her final desperate and failed rebellion against that world. Thank you for joining us in The Emotive Archive.